Hello and welcome into the ETSN podcast. And boy, we have a lot for you this week. I can't remember a week in the playoffs I've looked forward to the most than this week in my 5 years here at ETSN. And I'm Clint Buckley. I'm joined as always by Chandler Vessels. Chandler, you probably think this is normal. I mean, this is your first year here, and we've got 11 regional finalists. This is not normal. So welcome to one of the best years that East Texas has had in a while.
Are you serious? I thought this was like an every year thing for you guys.
I wish it was.
No, I'm really excited too. It's been a great year to be a part of. Heard so much about Texas football coming in to this job, and to have this be my first season, I don't think there could be anything else that would live up to, the hype that people gave this place coming in. So I'm really excited too, especially for that Longview Lufkin game this Saturday. So it should be a really fun week.
As I mentioned, we have 11 regional finalists taking part in 7 playoff games this week, beginning Thursday, continuing all the way through Saturday. And I guess we'll start with the biggest headliner. You just mentioned it, Longview versus Lufkin. That's at 2 o'clock Saturday from SFA's Homer Bryce Stadium in Nacogdoches. Some notes here real quick. This is the last time these two teams met in the playoffs at SFA was back in 2004. And I was just telling Chandler this a minute ago before we came on air. There were reportedly 27,000 people in attendance for that game, and there are pictures out there that seem to verify that. The stadium only seats 15,000, so that's 12,000 in standing room only, and everyone is anticipating a similar crowd this Saturday. Everyone's encouraging the fans to get there extra early. The gates do not open until 12, which means there's probably going to be lots of tailgating going on Saturday morning. I don't anticipate... I anticipate fans getting there, 8, 9 in the morning probably, just to camp out and make sure they get a good seat once the gates open. Because I don't think it's any reserve seating. I think it's all general admission, first come, first serve. So looking forward to that. This is the 10th time these two teams have met in the playoffs, which is kind of rare because for the most of their existence, they've been in the same district. And up until recently, you didn't find two district teams meeting in the playoffs that often. It's happened more recently as we've added more playoff teams to the field, because there used to be, way back in the day, just one team per district make the playoffs, and that has since evolved to what we have now, which is 4. And it's the third time in the last 4 seasons Longview and Lufkin have met in the playoffs. The last 2 times were in the first round of the playoffs. Longview won both of those games. So there is some history. There's some recent history involved with Longview and Lufkin in the playoffs. And, of course, these two teams met in the season opener, week 1. Longview won that game 35-16, but I wouldn't read too much into that. There have been changes, wholesale changes, really, for both teams since week 1. I mean, this is 15 weeks ago. So, I mean, obviously things are not going to stay the same for that long a period. Number 1, Haynes King wasn't the starting quarterback at Longview. Remember, we were talking early in the year what Longview was going to do with their quarterback situation. They were going to go with 3 guys at the beginning, which they did. And they really didn't settle on Haynes King as a starter until week 5 of the season. So, and boy, he came up big last week. 4 touchdown passes in their upset win over Klein Collins. If they didn't have Haynes King, they obviously wouldn't be here this far in the playoffs. Number 2, Longview running back Jesse Anderson started that game, but has since missed the last 11 games with an injury. So we don't know what kind of status he is going to have on Saturday. Jesse Anderson was in uniform last week. He got in for 1 play, but did not touch the ball. So it'll be interesting to see, what kind of effect Jesse Anderson will have on this game. I have a feeling he's going to have a little something to do with it and we'll get to that in a minute. But they're going to have to find a way to run the ball. And number 3, Lufkin. They're probably playing the best defense of any team we have left in the East Texas playoffs. They're holding teams to about 2 yards per carry in the playoffs. That's an incredible number in 3 games. I mean, that's not just 1 game, 1 sample size. I mean, that's 3 games worth of action, and to hold teams to 2 yards per carry. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, in high school, if you hold teams to 4 yards a carry, you're doing a really good job, and they've cut that in half. They held down a really good Spring Westfield offense to less than 200 yards of total offense last week. They really had 3 points up until the very end. They scored a touchdown about midway through the 4th quarter to bring their total up to 11. But Lufkin dominated that game defensively from start to finish, and that's what they've been doing for the last several weeks now, has really been playing good on defense. You saw them firsthand a couple of weeks ago, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. keys to the game, I got two big keys to this one. Number one, can Longview get its running game back on track? I mentioned last week against Klein Collins, they were held to a season-low 89 rushing yards. And if it wasn't for Haynes King, we wouldn't be talking about this game this week. He really bailed their offense out last week. It's hard to imagine Longview winning if their ground game isn't up to snuff against Lufkin. And that's going to be a tall task because, as I mentioned, Lufkin's defense has been great against the run, just 2 yards per carry in the playoffs. You don't want to put too much pressure on a sophomore quarterback like Haynes King. I know he came through last week with the big game, but I don't know if you want to continue to expect that kind of performance out of him week to week. I think Longview is going to have to run the ball much better this week than they did last week. I'm not saying that they need to average 6 yards a carry and put up 300 yards rushing because that's not going to happen against Lufkin, but they do need to establish some sort of presence on the ground, I think, in order to come out with a win. And then key number two, will Lufkin be able to make enough plays through the air? Kewan Thomas had a great regular season in his first years as a starting quarterback at Lufkin, taking over for Cordell Rogers, who was very prolific as Lufkin's quarterback the previous few seasons. But it's been a struggle the last couple of weeks in the playoffs for Kewan Johnson. I think it was like 4 of 14 or something like that against Richardson Pierce 2 weeks ago, and then struggled again last week. He played a little bit better, but not what he was doing in the regular season. And I think he's going to have to step up and make a few more plays with his arm. And he's got the weapons to do it at receiver. He's got Malik Jackson. He's got Jalen Polk. They are missing Braylon Garcia, who's obviously a big weapon for them. But those two guys are capable of making big plays in the passing game. And I think Lufkin's going to have to be two-dimensional on offense. They're going to have to be able to run and throw it because Isaiah Phillips, for as good as he's been all season for Lufkin, Longview's going to be keying in on him. And they're going to have to make some plays through the air if they're going to come out on top on this one. So those are my two keys to watch. You and I are both going to be there Saturday at SFA, Longview and Lufkin, two of possibly 25,000. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We can't wait for that. The other big game going on at SFA takes place the night before, Friday night. It's the 4A Division I Region 3 Championship between Carthage and Henderson, round 2, and then round 4 if you want to count their two meetings from last year. This is the second straight year that these two district rivals have met in the playoffs. Carthage edged Henderson, as you know, 33-31 last year in the regional semifinals, on its way to state title number 5. For Henderson, it's the second time this season they faced both Kilgore and Carthage in consecutive games. They went 0-2 in the first round, go-round in district, but they avenged Kilgore's loss last week, and they're looking to do the same against Carthage. The key number one for Henderson is, do they have an answer for D. Bowens? Carthage's receiver has been just going nuts on folks all year long. And then Carthage's regular season win over Henderson, which was 42-17, Bowens had 4 catches, 172 yards, including 2 long touchdowns of 70 and 74 yards. He has 19 touchdown catches on the year and only 50 receptions. So roughly 40% of his catches are going for touchdowns, and Henderson's going to have an answer for him. You know, everyone talks about Keontae Ingram, and Henderson did a really good job. Did a really good job in their regular season against Ingram. Held him to a season low 61 yards. And he really wasn't much of a factor, but they still lost 42-17 because they could not find a way to stop Carthage's big plays through the air. Gunter Capps, what can you say about him last week? 7 touchdown passes in one half against Silsbee. He's playing really well. So that's what makes Carthage so hard to defend, because you put all your eggs in the Keontae Ingram basket, and you got guys like D. Bowens and Dwaylon Ingram that can burn you with long touchdown passes from Gunter Capps. So Henderson has its work cut out for it. Obviously, Friday night, if they want to avenge that loss and dethrone Carthage as state champs. So looking forward to that one Friday night. Newton and Waskom in the Class 3A Division II Region 3 Championship. You'll be there in Lufkin, 7:30 Friday. What are you looking forward to the most in this one?
Yeah, excited for this one. Obviously, Newton's a very good team. Been rolling all season. I've seen them a couple times this year and have been really impressed with what I've seen out of them. But Waskom is another team that I've seen a couple of times, and this Waskom team that we're seeing in the playoffs doesn't seem to be adding up with what I saw the 2 times I saw Waskom play this season. I saw
They're
them
putting up points.
I saw them lose twice to Harmony and then to West Rusk, which both those teams have great defenses, so that might have been why they struggled a little bit, but they're going to be going up against another team with a great defense here in Newton. But just to give you an idea of how much Waskom has really dominated these playoffs, they've won their 3 games by an average of 25.6 points.
That's impressive in the playoffs.
Yeah, which is they weren't doing that in the regular season either. So they've really kicked it up a notch in these last 3 weeks, and they beat Garrison 57-28 last week. So we'll see if they've got enough left in the tank to sort of make this an interesting game. But I really think the key matchup here in this one is going to be Waskom's front on offense against Newton's front on defense. Waskom likes to run the ball. They don't pass very often. They're averaging over 400 yards per game on the ground. And they've got a running back in TK Hamilton that's been near the top of the stats leaderboard all season. He's got 1,815 yards so far to go with 26 touchdowns, averaging 10.3 yards a carry. So if Waskom's going to want to stay in this game, they're obviously going to want to lean on him, but it's not just going to be him. They've got a couple other players in that backfield too. Dalen Hill and Jacob Reeves have combined for almost 1,500 yards. Their quarterback, Ty Carter, has more rushing yards than he does passing yards. That just goes to show you how much they love to run the ball there in Waskom. But they're gonna run up against a very tough defense in Newton that's just got a huge list of guys that could come up with stops, from Corbin Foster to James Sylvester to J-Dream McGraw. The list goes on and on. Tamazier Brown. It's going to be a tough task for Waskom. And we haven't even really mentioned what Newton brings to the table on offense either.
No, they're pretty good on offense.
Yeah, they've got the leading rushing touchdowns guy in East Texas, in Darwin Barlow. He has 33 rushing touchdowns this season.
One ahead of Keontae Ingram, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It's neck and neck in that battle. He's got about 1,600 yards to go with that. And then we mentioned Tamazier Brown on defense, but he also brings a lot to the table on offense, almost 700 receiving yards this season. So that's going to put even more pressure on this Waskom offense to put up points against the defense, because I really doubt Waskom's going to be able to stop Newton on offense. Newton scored 21 points last week against a West Russ defense that was 19 points below their previous season low.
It might be crazy to say this because West Russ has had so many shutouts during the year, but that might have been their best defensive performance all season.
Oh, yeah.
And still giving up 21 points.
Yeah, West Russ's defense kept them in that game, gave them so many chances to win that game. It's just, again, this Newton defense really came up even bigger for them.
Yeah, it should be an interesting battle. I think you and I both anticipate Newton coming out on top, but Waskom is playing obviously a lot better than it did in the regular season. 4 losses in the regular season, but they've rolled in the playoffs. Haven't really been tested. They will be tested this week, so looking forward to that one. And then tomorrow night, Thursday night, it gets started with Tenaha versus Timpson. This is a district rematch, another district rematch. For the regional championship. Tenaha and Timpson, these two teams from Shelby County, are going to be traveling north to Panola County. 7 p.m. Thursday at Bulldog Stadium in Carthage. Timpson's rolling right now. They put up 57 points in their first round. In their first round win, they followed that up by knocking off the 3-time defending state champs, Bremond. And then they're entering this week on the heels of a 67-point performance against Grapeland, another district foe. And all of this, all those 3 games, since it's lost to Tenaha in the regular season finale. That being said, Tenaha is a machine. The Tigers average almost 52 points per game. They're beating teams by an average of 46 points. Their quarterback, C.J. Horn, has more than 31 total yards of offense. Running back Ontario Thompson is a 2,000-yard rusher. And wide receiver Trey Gardner has over 1,000 yards receiving with 15 touchdowns. Those are just the 3 highlights. They're loaded with 3 highlights on offense, but they're loaded with playmakers. This is going to be obviously a very tough test for Timpson. We kind of pegged Tenaha as the favorite, not only in the region, but possibly to win state in Class 2A Division II. The regular season was 40-6 Tenaha. Would I be surprised if it's closer? No. But I do think Tenaha is probably the favorite, and it would take a monumental effort from Timpson and then probably a bad game from Tenaha for Timpson to pull off the upset. Another game to talk about, Pleasant Grove and Melissa. Melissa kind of spoiled this district rematch theme we've got going on in 4A Division II by beating Gilmer last week. We would have loved to see a Pleasant Grove Gilmer rematch from just a great game in the regular season. But Melissa comes back to beat Gilmer. They're going to face Pleasant Grove. This one's at 7 o'clock Friday from Wildcat Stadium in Paris. PG, Pleasant Grove, they really haven't been tested all season, but they're probably going to get their toughest challenge of the year this week with Melissa. The Cardinals, they average 550 yards per game. That's just nuts. And they're led by a couple of sophomores. Their quarterback, Brendan Lewis, and their running back, Jabray Young. Lewis has more than 4,000 total yards, while Young has rushed for more than 1,400. I believe Brendan Lewis, sophomore, just picked up his first offer from SMU a few days ago. So, he's obviously a player. The Hawks are going to counter with a very methodical attack. They're not fancy about what they do. They just do what they do, and that's run the football. And they're spearheaded by just a trio of guys in the backfield: T.J. Cole, Chauncey Martin, Bruce Garrett. Those guys kind of ignite that rushing attack. But don't forget about Ben Harmon, their sophomore quarterback, who has an incredible 24 touchdown passes on only 68 completions. That's one in less than three passes or completions go for touchdowns. Carson Cox, by the way, his go-to receiver, 11 touchdowns and only 24 catches. So half the catches go for 6 for Carson Cox. So you can't just completely ignore the passing game because they will get you through the air. But this has the potential to be a shootout. It's one where I think Melissa can maybe score on maybe 4 or 5 play drives, and where you see Pleasant Grove scoring on like 10, 12, 14 play drives. So I think it's going to be kind of a contrasting styles here between Pleasant Grove and Melissa. But I do expect a lot of points in this game. I think the winner could be decided by just stops. Just 1 or 2 stops maybe enough for either team to come out with a win. 2 more games to get to real quick in 3A Division II. The Region 2 Championship. How about New Diana? Kind of the Cinderella story in East Texas. They're going up against Gunter in a true David versus Goliath matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. New Diana's been far and away the best story of these playoffs. They were 0-10 2 years ago, and here they are in the regional final. It's been I got to see them for the first time last week when they beat Jacksboro.
Pretty good first impression.
Yeah, that was honestly the best game I've seen this season. My best Texas high school football experience so far. New Diana comes back and wins with 12 seconds left on the clock.
Came down to a PAT.
Yeah. Jacksboro missed the PAT before that to give New Diana the chance to win the game, and Jackson Sampson was great in that game as he has been all season. I remember one of the writers there got a phone call from his story from an editor at the paper that he worked at, saying, "Hey, is this a typo? You said Jackson Sampson has 61 touchdown passes this season." No, that's not a typo. Jackson Sampson does have 61 touchdown passes this season to go along with 4,600 yards. I believe he's 1,000 yards ahead of this number 2 guy.
Wouldn't that be something? I mean, it would take a big time effort, but if he were to get 400 yards or so and get to 5,000, that'd be crazy.
That'd be crazy. The second year in a row, I believe that East Texas would have a 5,000 yard passer.
Poppy did it last year.
So and he's the number 2 guy right behind Sampson right now. So obviously Gilmer's season ended last week, so he'll probably stay there. But if New Diana wants to win this game, really what it's going to come down to is being able to score. I mean, which sounds pretty easy. They've been able to do that all season. Yep. Offense has been their MO for sure, but this Gunter defense is just going to be a lot tougher to do that on. They're giving up 5.1 points per game, winning by an average of 44 points per game.
Ouch.
They control the clock because they run the ball a lot. They average 61 passing yards per game compared to 320 running yards. So they control the clock. They've got a 1,000-yard rusher and then a couple more 700-yard guys.
And they're experienced, having won state last year. That's a big key too. A lot of these guys were on that state championship team last year.
Yeah. So to beat a team like this is going to take a lot from New Diana. But hey, if they're able to do it, that would make their story even better this season. But.
Yep, and then last but not least, 2A Division I, Region 3, St. Augustine, still unbeaten, still rolling along. They take on Centreville Friday. Yeah,
if it weren't for that monster performance from Gunter Caps, St. Augustine probably would have had the offensive player of the week.
I mean, we'll get to the players of the week in a minute, but I was really close. It was really hard to deny KJ Davis offensive player of the week after what he did last week, and you saw it.
Yeah, I had 323 yards on the ground, 43 through the air. 6 total touchdowns, Those 323 rushing yards were a school record, which he also held the previous school record, so he broke his own record in that one. And that catapulted him into the number one spot for rushers in East Texas. He's got over 2,100 yards this season and 29 touchdowns. So, honestly, I would just advise the Wolves to keep feeding him the ball if they want to win this game.
Don't fix it if it's not broke.
No, don't mess with it. I've seen him twice this season, and I think he has about 10 touchdowns and almost 600 yards in those 2 games that I've seen this season.
And they're going to be disappointed to find out that you won't be there Friday.
Oh, yeah. Good luck charm for them. But another key is going to be their offensive line's ability to protect their quarterback, Gavin Murr. Found out last week that he was playing with an injured Achilles, so he's not very mobile right now. I mean, a week's time could change that. Maybe he is able to run around a little bit more, but still, I would think, being injured, their offensive line is going to feel even more emphasis on protecting him and making sure he doesn't take any big hits or he's not put in situations where he does have to run away from defenders chasing him or anything like that. So, and he played well last week too. I mean, his performance was kind of lost in that KJ Davis's performance.
Understandably, yeah.
He had over 200 yards too, playing hurt. So,
I guess a really good team in Carlisle. I don't think we gave Carlisle enough credit this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they finished. I think they. I want to say they were 4th in that district, but that
was a loaded district.
They were a lot better than a 4th place team in a district.
Yeah. So, really, just looking for those 2 guys to keep it going is what I think could fuel St. Augustine to a win in this game.
Well, before we get out of here, we want to give a special shout out to our offensive and defensive players of the week. We mentioned it earlier. Our offensive player of the week is Carthage junior quarterback Gunter Capps. How about this? 13 of 15, 387 yards, 7 touchdowns in 2 quarters. 1 half. He had all of that at halftime. As Carthage put up 64 points in 1 half. I still can't believe that. 64 points. They win 64-36 over Silsbee. None of their starters played in the second half. I think their defensive starters got 2 series. Nobody on offense played in the second half at all. So congratulations to Gunter Capps, our offensive player of the week. And on defense.
Yeah, we've got Lufkin defensive back Jaron Thompson. We mentioned how good Lufkin's been on defense this postseason, but especially in stopping that running game. But he actually came up with an interception last week and 2 pass breakups. So that went along with 5 tackles and 1 for loss. So the Panthers held Spring Westfield to 11 points. Obviously, a great performance by their defense as a whole, but really standout performance from Jaron Thompson, and he actually moved up into the leaderboard for interceptions with that pick last week. So congrats to Jaron.
All right, so just a fantastic weekend ahead in East Texas as we are assured of at least 4 state semifinalists next week, and we could have as many as 7 depending on the outcomes. Be on the lookout all week and weekend for the full-blown coverage from ETSN.fm. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Clint Buckley. He's at Chandler Vessels. And obviously, you can find us on our main account as well at ETSN.fm. Also, download our mobile app right now on the App Store at Google Play. For Chandler Vessels, I'm Clint Buckley. Y'all enjoy the games.